Strap yourselves in, listener. I'm interested to know your take on the following mysteries. As ever, I try to stay away from subjects which have been discussed in other content creators' videos, so I hope this line of mysteries is entertaining while straying away from the beaten track. From humble beginnings indeed, the blank or psychic null known as Elizabeth Bequin would rise in the esteem of some of the most ruthless as well as powerful individuals in the entire Imperium. Born with the incredibly rare pariah gene, Elizabeth Bequin's early life was turbulent to say the least, due to the curse or gift, depending upon how you view that particular genetic anomaly. Elizabeth would find maintaining a career or developing any sort of social circle virtually impossible. Quickly, in case you are not aware, those mortals born with the pariah gene lack a mirror essence within the immaterium. This has the effect of nullifying any warp-based power within their presence, including psychic talents or demonic manifestation. When finally Elizabeth's path would chance upon the Ordo Xenos Inquisitor Eisenhorn, she was clearly grasping for any paid work, at that time working as a courtesan or pleasure girl on the world of hubris. As chance, or perhaps divine intervention, brought Elizabeth into the skilled Inquisitor's life during his investigations, Elizabeth would begin to form close bonds with not only Eisenhorn, but also the members of his team. If you didn't know, Inquisitor Gregor Eisenhorn was born with the gifts of the Psyker, though his power was nowhere near as prodigious as that of Gideon Ravener. He was still very adept, nursing a strong will, which could be used to force his enemies into momentary compliance when circumstances demand. Thus, as mutual feelings developed between Elizabeth and Eisenhorn, there would be no way the pair could pursue anything deeper than a mutual respect and fondness, as Elizabeth's pariah effect brought pain upon Eisenhorn when in close proximity to one another. This is something the pair both lament, Eisenhorn especially to this day, conceivably explaining why Eisenhorn in years to come would shadow the clone known as Beata Bequin so intently, viewing her with a kind of paternal instinct. Alas, there exists no happily ever afters in the grim dark future. So within the early years of Eisenhorn's slow decline from grace, whilst trying to resist the might of none other than a corrupted Chaos Titan, Elizabeth would be struck down during a brave defense of her friends and compatriots, whilst attempting to block the psychic might of an ancient, corrupted god engine. There could be little hope for a mere mortal. Though not killed outright, Elizabeth was in a coma, held within stasis to ensure her condition would not deteriorate. Following Bequin's internment within a stasis pod, Gregor Eisenhorn would go on to commit some truly heinous acts in the name of mankind's greater good. It must be considered whether the loss of Bequin hollowed out a man who was already capable of ruthless acts, nullifying his sense of remorse further. For those who have listened to our recently uploaded King in Yellow video, a link of which can be found within the description, you will be aware this is not the last we see of Bequin. In a fashion, almost 100 years after being struck down, the void craft transporting Elizabeth's stasis pod would be lost during a warp translation in mid-M41. Now, this is where our first mystery lies, dear listener. For upon the world of St. Cor, within the Angelus subsector, a cognate operation in service to the mighty King in Yellow was responsible for training pariah clones in the skills of Inquisition agents, one of the clone genomes being that of Elizabeth Bequin. Somehow, either the organization known as the Cognate, or otherwise agents of the King in Yellow, have acquired genetic samples from the original Elizabeth genome in order to create clones such as Beata. I must say, it is curious that Elizabeth would go missing during a routine warp jump, knowing that the city of dust which the king inhabits is also within that realm. Perhaps when the third and final installment of the Bequin trilogy is released, we will discover Elizabeth alive and well, aiding the king, who can say? For now though, I would love to hear your opinion on the fate of Elizabeth and how the king acquired her genetic code. Prince of Crows, equerry to the dreaded Night Haunter, Jago Sevatarian held the honoured rank of first captain of the Night Lord's Legion. He was the most senior Astartes within a den of murderers and psychopaths, virtually unmatched throughout the Astartes legions in matters concerning the blade. He was held in awe by many of the greatest warriors during the Grand Crusade era. Sevatar's reputation during that time could be compared to those such as Sigismund or Ezekiel Abaddon. Such was his repute. You see, Sevatar was an anomaly among his brothers. It is true he exhibited the same disturbing behavioural traits of which the Night Lord's Legion are most noted for. However, Sevatar was a natural leader of men, inspiring his brothers always from the front. In a way, Jago was an example of what the Night Lord Legionnaires could be, or even what they wanted to aspire to become, were so many of them not afflicted by such depraved tendencies. Of those transhumans who possessed the necessary skill, tempered with a somewhat more brave or sane approach to warfare compared to their brothers, those Night Lords would form the first company under the command of Sevatar, called the Atramentar. These warriors were the most accomplished within the entire Night Lord's Legion. Considering for a moment the general discord rent throughout this particular Astartes Legion, for warriors to rise above their truer tendencies, let alone such depravity as exhibited within that legion, the skill of leadership and force of will to do this would need to be exceptional indeed. This is where Sevatar shone. His charisma and ability would unite a legion of superhuman killers who dared not defy his word. Well, most of the time. There is much speculation even among those of the Night Lord's Legion upon the final fate of Sevatar. Some claim he fell during the Siege of Terra, the final fated battle against the Emperor's forces on the throne world, whilst others believe he became disenchanted with Conrad Kerr's depravity and self-loathing, forcing Jago to leave the Legion and strike out on his own, though there is another, more outlandish fate whispered about the Prince of Crows. That is, that Jago Sevatarian did join forces with the Imperial Loyalists during the final days of the heresy. That his traits of reasoning would cause a transmogrification, turning this somewhat depraved warrior of darkness instead into one willing to stand as a shield for humanity. For is it not known that Jago despised the chaos-corrupted forces of the Word-Bearers? Is it too far-fetched to consider Jago may have turned traitor upon the traitors? Let me know in the comment section what you think happened to him. For those of you not aware, there was an Astartes chapter founded centuries prior to the famed Second Founding. It took place before even the Horus Heresy's conclusion. Their founding was so clandestine that none but the Emperor and Sigillite's inner circle were privy to this historic, desperate occasion. Now, between the twilight of the 41st millennium and the dawning of the fated 42nd, this small band of specialists stand resolute against the most powerful forces of the primordial annihilator. Often an incredibly thin line, a handful of brothers, or the resources which can be spared in a galaxy-spanning conflict. They do not flinch from the horrors they combat, and they do not shirk from committing vast cleansings throughout imperial populations, as to ensure the insidious corruption of chaos does not infect others. They are the Grey Knights, and their purity is such that not one single Astartes has fallen to the corrupting influence of chaos. despite their proximity to creatures of nightmare, whose corrupting influence has turned entire systems to the will of the dark gods. Perhaps this will emphasize then both the clarity of purpose and spiritual purity of those Astartes who are called upon to serve within the Chamber of Purity, the stalwart marines of the Purifier Order. This group within the Grey Knights chapter number but a few dozen brothers at any single time. Such is the exacting standards of sanctity required to be invited to join their hallowed ranks. So holy are these warriors that they are haloed by the same soul fire which inhabits those greatest of the Emperor's saints. So then, who better than the Purifier's Order to stand guard over the great evil which lurks at the base of Mount Unark, on the moon of Titan, within the heart of the Chamber of Purity? For the Grey Knights to imprison a malefic entity, further dedicating already sparse resources to ensuring it does not escape, perhaps only generates further questions more than providing answers of any kind. Consider for a moment this entity has not been banished. This would mean either the Grey Knights, mankind's premier demon fighting force, lack the ability or power to do so, or for some unknowable reason, they prefer to fashion a prison for the creature, rather than sending it back to the Immaterium. Rumours abound within the Grey Knights chapter as to the true nature of this great evil. Some believe it predates the founding of the Grey Knights fortress on Titan, perhaps even being the reason this place was chosen to house such indomitable Astartes, whilst others are of the opinion that some great evil penetrated Malcador's protective wards during the moon's time in the war. Whichever is true, that which lurks within the Chamber of Purity's heart must be diabolical indeed, for intrepid brothers not of the Purifier's Order, who have risked the wrath of these jailers, piercing the outer gates of the chamber, have either received a harsh beating for their arrogance, or, perhaps witnessing some great secret, have simply never returned. Only the Purifier is aware of what has become of them. Now the cicatrix maledictum has spewed forth innumerable horrors into real space, further stretching the meagre resources at the Grey Knight's disposal. Will whatever evil lurks within the Chamber of Purity break loose? Time will tell. Do you think 10th edition will see this lore expanded upon? I have a Grey Knight army myself, and love their lore. You guys let me know in the comments your thoughts. For millennia, the Fallen known as Cypher has sown disruption throughout the ranks of both traitor and loyalist alike. He is known to command the respect of a great many fallen Dark Angels, whilst just as many wish him dead. Most recently, with the return of the Avenging Sun, this agent of disruption has dared to strike out on terror itself, within as well as deep underneath the Imperial Palace. In our recent two-part videos series, we explore in detail the events of the newly released novel, Cypher, Lord of the Fallen, and what transpires will shock you. I will not give away details which spoil that novel or videos, but what I will say is it does seem strange that within this novel, as well as Lion Son of the Forest, members of the Fallen wish to destroy the Emperor for what could, it is stated, result in helping free him from his supposed imprisonment on the Golden Throne. If you wish to learn more regarding this particular plot, jump into the description of this video or head over to the video section of our YouTube page to learn more. Within the heart of the rock, the Dark Angels' mobile fortress and shard of their former homeworld of Caliban, an ancient sleeper stirred. The lion has slumbered for near on 10 millennia, following his betrayal at the hands of his foster father and mentor, Luther. With the dawning of a new age, however, that of Indomitus, the son of the forest once more lends his sword to his father's vision for mankind. But how did this come to pass? what has occurred recently that the lion again walks among us. Within some secluded, nigh impenetrable corner of the Empyrean, an elderly man sits upon the edge of a small river. A thin trickle of blood seeps into the body of water. The stranger is not alone, however, as 4 murky, serpentine shadows squirm beneath the water's calm surface. The lion, confused, watches on, trying to engage with the man, yet all he receives in return are riddles and musings. This is the first instance we experience Lionel Johnson active within a progressive storyline, following his ill-fated battle with Luther. Whilst it is possible that the recent prolific chaos taint aboard the Rock between the forces of the Black Legion, Vashtor, and even Bellicor could have disrupted the lion's slumber, or even triggered the Watchers to wake him now, we do not yet have confirmation how the lion was woken from his millennia-spanning sleep. Personally, I believe the Emperor, the elderly man holding back the serpentine chaos gods within the Empyrean, enacted a type of forest walk process, which is where we experience the lion at the beginning of the novel Lion Son of the Forest, but that is merely my guess. Do you have any theories on how this occurred? Is this something it's intended we assume at the beginning of his most recent storyline? Or will we yet learn of a more intricate plot in time to come? This is lore we've been looking forward to for decades now. Let me know what you believe occurred. Finally, do you truly believe we have seen the last of the Night Haunter? As many are aware, this particular crazed son of the Emperor yearned for vindication against a tyrant father in whose name Conrad Kurz committed atrocities best not spoken about now. Yet conversely, the Night Haunter would act on his own psychopathic tendencies, labelling the atrocities he committed the will of his father. When Conrad's time finally came, it was the Calidus assassin named Shen who was allowed to pierce the Night Lord's defences to do so. This one lone operative, the only agent not killed by the Night Lord's Legion, was all that survived out of fully half the Calidus Temple dispatched to end the threat Kurz posed. Of course, this was purposefully orchestrated by Conrad Kurz, who welcomed his death as his final vindication that the Emperor was indeed a sanctimonious despot. Nevertheless, consider this. The Night Haunter did wear an obsidian crown called the Corona Nox, an effect he crafted himself using obsidian from the bowels of his homeworld, Nostramo. And besides the blood jewels inlaid within the crown, there was but one single diamond or gem of greater significance also inlaid within its face. While some believe this is a red diamond, others suspect it could in fact be a soul gem or spirit stone, such as those used by the Eldari to capture one's spirit upon their death. If Conrad had in fact welcomed death as his long-awaited vindication, why would he willingly trap his soul, denying himself the finality of it? This is also something to consider, though I fear we may never learn the truth. I honestly love speaking with you all about this hobby we love so much, so make sure you leave a comment with your suspicions and thoughts on what we discussed today. If you enjoy it, consider hitting the sub button, like, and notification bell. Don't forget, if you want to join a community to hobby together, game together online, and vote for the channel's content, check out our Patreon in the link below. As ever, thanks so much for tuning in. Take it easy and have a good one.